Everything has a life cycle. So it isn't even us, the people, that need to tear this system down. But when we get to the end stage, which is where we are right now, we are in the end stage of this fiat money's life cycle.
So what do you think happens to all the people who own Iraqi dinars, and if they come out with a new currency, does that mean the old currency is worth nothing?
Correct. This is $100 trillion. No. Yeah. $10 trillion Zimbabwe note. Now they've got Zim gold. This has no value.
It will never have value.
Never, ever will it have value. So if you want to know what the true fundamental value of an ounce of gold is, it's really simple. And I'm not trying to get you to the penny. I'm just trying to get you in the vicinity. Just divide all the debt that exists by all the gold that exists. And that's how I came up with 40 grand. It's not rocket science, right?
Well, let me tell you, you're not that far off, because I follow the debt clock pretty closely. And I remember going back a year and a half to that darn thing. And it would say dollar ratio to gold, $48,000 is as high as I've seen it. So you're about $8,000 off if that one is right and you're wrong, or vice versa. So you're not that far off. But before we get started, folks, make sure you hit the pause button. Okay, go down below. There's a Rumble link. Go over to Rumble and follow us over there. QFS1776.com is, without question, the holy grail of what's to come. Okay, T-shirts. You got to get yourself decorated. This way people will ask you, what is XRP? What is the quantum financial system? What is this? What is that? And you send them where? To QFS1776.com, where they need to immerse themselves, because we're going to burn down this system down to the ground. And out of the ashes will rise the phoenix. There'll be nothing to go back to. Believe me when I tell you that. Also, our Telegram groups down below. If you want to learn what's coming and you're sort of a little scared, I understand. Believe me, I was there too at one point. And if you need more than $10,000 worth of XRP or $1 million worth of XRP, you come see me. Send me an email at QFS1776@gmail, and we'll get you as much as you want. Gold and silver. Welcome to CarminesGold.com. Don't waste not even a second looking. Cheaper prices just don't exist. How important is it for you to own gold and silver right now? What does it mean to me personally? There's an economy that's about to crash beyond what words can explain. In 5 words, I'm going to educate you on gold and silver. Are you ready? You need to own some. Simple. Well, let's get the show started. Why don't we? Guys, we have a very special guest today, Lynette Zang. I had the pleasure and honor to meet her down at the Vegas XRP convention, which I've been there 2 years in a row. And I'm probably going to end up going to the 3rd year as well. And, you know, if you know anything about Lynette Zang obviously she is a gold bug and silver bug. And the reality is, I've been following her for way longer than Mel Carmine even thought he was going to become a podcaster. But because of boredom and the COVID thing that rolled into town, and I got bored, and I was in Costa Rica living in a gated community, and I was like gaining weight because I was depressed. I was like going outside, looking at all the different things that's going on and the police activity, and no one's allowed to drive and no one's allowed to do, you know, A, B, and C, and everybody's got to wear one of those stupid diapers. It was depressing. At what point I basically told my wife, I said, I'm bored out of my mind. I says, if Nino Rodriguez could do this, so can Mel Carmine. I'm going to start a podcast. And I started a podcast out of the blue, thinking that, you know, after I got past 3,000 followers, that they would all go away and I would go back to selling energy deregulation. And, you know, lo and behold, almost 3 years later, I'm still here. And I was following her for 3 years prior to that. So I know that you are a big, big deal on gold and silver. Listen, I can't leave the money on the table. You know, I'm a little bit of a gangster when it comes to business. I started my own company called CarminesGold.com. That was my partner just calling, which I just basically hung up on him. He's probably calling because I got a lady that called me out of California, says, Mel, I got $1.7 million. What do you think I should do with it? I said, buy silver, buy gold, do it now. So she's talking to her financial advisor, who doesn't live in our world, unfortunately, and is about to get that money and put in her bank account so that we can go ahead and transition over. Because she is scared out of her mind, knowing that the stock market's going to crash. The money in the bank is about literally ready to take a crap. It's all coming down, but it's all has to come down on Biden's watch. Donald Trump is not going to take any responsibility for this. Okay. So everybody's freaking out. Everybody's going into panic buying. And my phone is ringing off the hook with people that have $5, $6, $7 million and they want to put it into gold and silver like they're buying a chopped liver sandwich.
They're not buying a chopped liver sandwich. They're buying sound money, and they should be scrambling, especially after what we saw with CrowdStrike and Microsoft, and then just the other day, Scotiabank.
Yes.
You know, I'm sorry, but if everything is in cyberspace, when cyberspace says no, you have no options. They should.
Yes. Absolutely. I totally agree. Well, Lynette Zang, you had a video that you did recently, and you're basically talking about a lot of stuff, this cup and handle thing that's getting ready to happen. You're talking about, the crash that's coming, the gold and silver sound money. I totally believe it. I'm a holder of plenty of silver, and I have some gold as well. I don't buy it in ounces anymore. I buy it in kilo bars. The 3 kilo bars. People say, well, what do you need a 3 kilo bar, Mel? You can't buy a loaf of bread with that. It says, yeah, but you could buy an entire city square block. Right?
Well, it would show that, I'm not so sure I'd have to calculate out the silver, but for 25 ounces of gold, an entire city block, buildings and all, that would be the average. So absolutely.
Yeah. So where do you see, look, you have a big price for gold. Okay. Let's start with that. I think it's very interesting that you have a price tag of $40,000 based on the fact that there is so much money and the quantitative easings and all the stuff that's going on in the world. And you got a price tag of $40,000 for gold. I got to ask you, where do you think silver is going to be at if, the gold hits 40 grand per ounce?
About $2,000.
Okay. So you're better off putting it in gold, not silver. Is that what you're saying?
Well, personally, I own both. I think that what I think people need to do is establish their goals. What are they trying to accomplish? Because all different kinds of gold and there's all different kinds of silver, and it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. That's what you allow to dictate how you should be into position. And I've studied currencies. This is why I don't think of myself as a gold bug.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, I could think of some others as stock snakes, or right?
Yeah.
It's about perception management and trying to get you to think, oh, this is a bad thing. But I am a huge proponent on sound money because I have been studying about sound money, well, on some level since 1964, but really in earnest since 1987. So I understand the fiat money. I understand that the system was specifically designed for 2 key reasons. There were many more, but 2 key reasons. Number one, because governments wanted to tax you without having to go to legislation and make it public. Because if you knew they wanted to raise the taxes on you, you might not like it. And number 2, corporations wanted to pay workers less. But hey, if you're used to getting $10, you're not going to accept 5. If, however, through inflation solves both of those, because number one, the government gets it, well, they get it second. First, the central bank, the government creates debt, the central bank buys that debt, right? So that's when new money is issued. It's issued via debt. It goes through the banking system first, but then it goes to the government. By the time it trickles down to you and me, it has a lot less purchasing power value. So that's what they call the inflation tax. It's almost invisible. It is not, hear me on this, puppy, it is not a monetary phenomenon. Inflation is not necessary. But by design, they put it into the system because do we not now see the income and wealth inequality? And that's been growing wider and wider and wider since the 80s, since President Nixon handed over control of inflation to central banks. Because remember, the corporations get the new money first and they get it cheaper too. So they actually said this when they were setting up the system, that through inflation, if people have to work harder or longer in order to maintain their standard of living, they will have less time to see what we're doing. And they accomplish both of those two key things because they knew that, number one, people marry the legal money of the state, right? The dollar can never go away. That's crazy. So they keep the name. They change everything else, but they keep the name so people don't realize that anything has changed. But for corporations, again, you go back and you look, I mean, in 71, when we were going into this new system that was purely debt-based, CEO to worker compensation was like 20-1. I think in some corporations like Jamie Dimon, don't hold me to this because I'm not looking at the data right in front of me, but I'll probably be pretty close. It's something like 3,000-1. Well, how did that happen? Thank you, inflation. Because the other thing that they absolutely knew is that not one man in a million, these are their words, this is Keynesian economics, not one man in a million understands inflation. But you know what the problem with that is? We've had central bankers like Jerome Powell and Christine Lagarde and the head of the Bank of England. I'm sorry, I don't remember his name right now. But all three of them came out and said, yeah, we don't really understand inflation. And they're the ones that are supposed to be guiding it.
Yeah, it's definitely a shit show on steroids. What banks do you think are going to survive this crash? I know you're maybe a little bit down and out on the cryptos, and you and I may bump a little heads on that, but it's gonna be a friendly bump, I promise. You know, what banks do you think? Do you think Wells Fargo? Do you think Citibank? Do you think Bank of America will survive?
I can't tell you who is going to survive, but what I can tell you is that Wells Fargo, Chase, Citibank, Bank of America, all of the large banks, not one of them have a credible way of how they will unwind during the next crisis. And that means that they have all become, yet again, too big to fail. But I'm not sure that central banks have the ability to create enough money for them to be able to bail them out. And definitely anybody who's holding money in the banks will be bailed in, right? So they're going to lose what money they hold in there. And it won't matter anyway, because what they'll have to do is just print and print and print and print and print. And that means that the little teeny bit of purchasing power that yet remains in this garbage goes away. And last time I checked, $1 trillion times zero was still zero. And it doesn't matter how many of these things you have. It matters what you can convert it into, what you can buy with it. In fact, I have a $10 trillion Zimbabwe note, which means in Zimbabwe, I'm a trillionaire. You know, with that?
Yeah. Well, listen, the bottom line is this. The system is so busted up. It is so broken. It is beyond repair. We need a new system. I believe that the Nasara-Jassara flat tax system is very much needed. A system where everybody has to pay and nobody can get away with it, even if your name is Jeff Bezos, or if it's Elon Musk, everybody has to pay their fair share, and there's no more loopholes, which means there's going to be a lot more money in the cash register with that system. Are you on board with a flat tax? Are you on board with the fact that we need to take this old system down to the ground and build something new and go into a debt jubilee and start from scratch? Yes or no? And tell us why.
I agree with part of those statements. I would be surprised by the other part of the statement. I don't really see a debt jubilee because this is about wealth transfer. But the reality is, everything has a life cycle, right? I'm going to be 70 in October, and I have a 9.5-year-old granddaughter. You need to learn how to recognize the aging of a system and the aging of a currency, because you're not going to look at her. She's going to be 10 in March. You're not going to look at her and go, I bet she might turn 70. Just like you're not going to look at me and go, yeah, I bet you she's going to be 10. And so the point is, I don't care what it is. Everything has a life cycle. So it isn't even us, the people, that need to tear this system down. But when we get to the end stage, which is where we are right now, we are in the end stage of this fiat money's life cycle. That's why you see as much garbage and dreck inside of the system that you do, why it's so incredibly abused. So what I want to see is a sound money system. This is my personal battle that I took on, because I always look in the mirror and I go, if not me, who? And if not now, when? And so that motivates me to do something. If we have sound money, if we have gold as a component in the new monetary system, what gold does is it requires governments to have fiscal responsibility. Because while I do believe that everybody should pay their fair amount, if you're looking at what is getting paid now and by whom, it's not just that Jeff Bezos skates, it's that I did this study in 2009 because I looked at the federal debts and deficits. And at that time, this is 2009, right? The deficit was running at about $1 trillion, something like that, $1 trillion, right? If you go onto the Federal Reserve Education Department, the FRED, F-R-E-D, and up in that search bar, you put surplus deficits, right? What you will see is that most of those deficits, while they did start in the early 70s after we went off the gold standard, they really weren't that horrendous until 2008. And I said to myself, wait a minute. At that time, we just now hit a $35 trillion mark. But at that time, we were at 13 trillion. 2009, we were at 13 trillion in Fed debt. And I said, but wait a minute. If we only now hit $1 trillion in deficits, why are we servicing 13 trillion in debts? Well, in the FRED, you can go to the data behind that, the spreadsheet. And so that's what I did. And when I started looking and making these comparisons, what I discovered, so they are lying to us all the time. But what I discovered was that excess was because not only were we not taking in enough money to pay for all the spending that the government was doing, but we weren't even taking enough for the interest. So what happens, like if you have a credit card and you only pay the minimum, so you're not paying all of the interest, let alone any of the principal, that interest goes into your principal, and now you're paying interest on interest, which is compounding interest. And I sent my work to an accountant, because I am not an accountant. But I sent my work to a friend of mine that is an accountant. And I said, would you just look at this and tell me, if I did this wrong, if I'm missing anything? I don't know, because this looks bad to me. And he came back and said, nope, you're looking at it the right way. And so it's garbage when they tell us how much interest we're paying, because what we're really doing is compounding that interest. So how much of that 37 trillion or 35 trillion in debt that they admit to is all just compounding interest.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like
Absolutely agree.
payments at what, 100,000 or it's or $1 million a day, or I don't even know. It's some ridiculous amount.
Yeah. I want to jump a little bit and talk about the central bank digital currency. You understand that the BIS, Bank of International Settlements, is a Ripple partner, Ripple XRP.
Mhm.
And there's been a lot of noise when it comes to the central bank digital currency. They all want us enslaved. And obviously you got your bug out, ranch out there in case they do enslave us. You're going to go run and hang out with your tilapia and your other kind of fish. I forget what that is, and grow your own food and have your solar panels, your free energy, whatever, and you're styling, right? But the reality is not everybody's got that. And so I don't believe we're going to go into a slave system, because Donald Trump said it very loud and clear at the Bitcoin conference just a few days ago. He said there is not going to be a central bank digital currency. You understand that these asset classes work perfectly well peer to peer, and as long as you don't mess with your wallets, you don't upgrade, you don't opt into anything, you don't do anything stupid, your money's very safe. They know that. Okay. There was something that happened with the ledger a few months ago, but that's gone. That's already swept under the rug and gone. But for the most part, it's very, very safe. Now I know that you are a little bit down and out on the digital assets because you think that's still a way for the banks to figure out a way to come back and control us. What do you think is going to happen in the future?
And I mean, I've been following Bitcoin since it was $7 a token, right? So
Mm-hmm.
watching it for a very, very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And read the 1996 NSA white paper on how to make a mint. And I did, I do know, imagine how much fiat money, this stuff would have gone into gold had Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies not been available.
Sure.
So I do think my personal feeling is that it is a Trojan horse to get us prepared because they want things to remain as normal as possible so that it's easier to transfer us into the new system.
Hmm. So you think that Bitcoin is going to survive, or you think Bitcoin's going to go away?
I think Bitcoin is probably going to survive primarily because of the intense adoption by Wall Street. And going back to the Bank for International Settlements in their money flower, there is a space for private cryptocurrencies that are not under the central bank's purview. Most of them are. Most of them will be controlled by the central bank, presuming they get away with this.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also why, I realize how important community is, because if we do not come together and have a quiet revolution just by converting this garbage fiat money into sound money, then then we're going to give up control. We have to take our control back, and we can
Yes.
very peaceful way
Mhm.
just by owning sound money and having a seat at the table. I don't know if I'm going to be able to accomplish that or not, but I'm going to die trying. I'll tell you right now.
Well, my friend Echo, which I recently interviewed, young man, he's a Asian immigrant in the States here. He's big on XRP. He said we can all come together and all at the same day in the same hour buy 1 ounce of silver and short silver because they don't have enough, to see what happens if the COMEX is going to untangle it and allow the true price of silver shine, or they're going to figure out a way to manipulate it in another way. I think their hands would be tied in that situation. Don't you think?
Only if there were enough dealers that were executing that contract and taking delivery.
Mm-hmm.
Because the COMEX and the LBMA, I mean, they're really all about trading contracts.
Sure.
Have all that underlying silver. They don't have all that underlying gold.
Right.
Going back to 2008, 2009 era, the Bank for International Settlements, and they still do this, they track the global derivatives, which are just big bets, right? And it was before I knew print screen, unfortunately. But I saw with my own eyes, so I know this is absolute, that for every 1 ounce of physical gold that exists, there were 62,000 ounces of derivative gold. They did the same thing with silver. So it doesn't matter how much physical silver actually exists, but you're going to need some of the big players to take delivery, because there are different size contracts, but the regular size contracts are 500 ounces of gold, 5,000 ounces of silver. And do you know how much those contracts cost the banks and the central banks to manipulate?
I have no clue. Probably zero.
Well, no, $150.
There you go.
Well,
Yeah.
let's see. Can you do a calculation for me, Adam? What is 500 times 24, 500 times 2,400? Six? Is that? That doesn't sound right. Wait, 100,000? No, it says 600 million. I don't think that's right, but I don't think that's right. But it is a lot of money that you can control. That's leverage with the $150, right? So that's what it's going to take. It's not going to take the individuals. The individuals, by buying gold and silver, can demand a seat at the table, because this is truly outside of the system, private, decentralized. And here's the other piece. And this is really one of the challenges. I know that this is an asset class that is here to stay. I'm not saying that cryptocurrencies and all of that is going away. They're not. But the heartburn that I have is I can't quite figure out, beyond being able to carry a lot of it on a thumb drive, what its functionality is. And that's important.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, when Bitcoin was born because they wanted to move money across borders. But unfortunately, because it's mining, it takes up too much energy. It costs too much money to move from point A to point B. It moves 3 transactions per minute. We're graduating into a world that's moving $5 quadrillion of money per year into a world that's going to move 50 quadrillions of money per year. Bitcoin is not going to cut it. So they had to go back to the drawing board, and voila, XRP is born. It could be scaled to trillions of transactions per second. Never made a mistake. Already moved trillions of dollars. This is going to be the coin that's going to literally, I wouldn't say rule them all, but this is the 99,000-pound gorilla, no question about it, that's going to have a major global spot on a monetary stage that's going to move commerce. The old SWIFT system is going to go away. It's antiquated. That system's been around. Yeah. That system's been around since I moved to the United States back in 1972. See, I missed the Bitcoin train, Lynette. I knew about Bitcoin the very first day it came off the shelf. For $1, you could have bought 800 Bitcoins for $1.
Yeah.
Imagine that. So where the system is broken, we know we need a new system. You talked about earlier today. I want to switch gears again. I sort of like to jump around a little bit. I do it a little bit different than everybody else. And you talked about how these Wall Street guys are all jumping and selling their stock. Jeff Bezos, what's his name from Facebook, Zuckerberg. Yeah. What's that all about? Is that an indication that we're about to crash?
Yeah. That is absolutely an indication that the rats are leaving the ship, and they're taking their chips off the table as the public has FOMO, right? And they're just this whole thing is about risk transfer from the few to the many. And it doesn't really matter what you're looking at when you're looking at intangibles and Wall Street assets. It's hard for me to call them assets, instruments. The key thing for me too is, what can you convert these different assets into? If you can only convert it into this, and it loses all of its purchasing power, all you have are $100 trillion Zimbabwe notes that you can't buy anything with, right? So I think the heartburn for me is about the utility of these coins, right? With gold and with silver, both, they are used in every single sector of the global market. That
Yes.
means they have the greatest utility and the broadest base of buyer. This stuff is used in one place. What's its utility? As a tool of barter, or a tool of inflation, or a tool of enslavement? That's really what this stuff is about. I have concerns about intangible assets and everything being in cyberspace when people that know a whole lot more about this than I do, that are cyber experts, and the cyber threats keeps growing. If everything you have is held in cyberspace and a bad actor or even a good actor makes a mistake or whatever, but you lose access to it.
Yeah. Lynette Zang, how many fake accounts do you have?
Fake accounts do I
Yeah.
have?
How many people are imitating you?
Oh God, I don't even know. Probably a lot though. Adam,
Yeah.
do you? There's plenty.
Yeah, I got at least 150, 200 imitators of Mel Carmine too.
Yep.
You're not alone. I could tell you that those followers that are following you, that think that they're following you, because there's a lot of people out there that have your content out there that are legitimate people that like your stuff, and they're making a little bit of money by pushing your content out there. Unfortunately, some of them, and maybe even most of them, are scammers trying to figure out a way how they can get money, and they've done it in my name many, many, many times.
Mhm.
There was a glitch recently, about 5, 6 days ago, 7 days ago, where all the airlines were grounded. Did you see this?
Right.
And
Yes.
okay, and that same day, I believe, or the day prior, I don't know if this is the white hats sending us a message, or the military, or Trump. I don't know who it is, but I know that the XRP, there was a glitch of $100,000 on all exchanges simultaneously, all at the same time. What are the chances of that?
Yeah. Not unless it's engineered.
Right. You see? So, look, I personally believe that you're absolutely right. Gold and silver have a utility. You and I would not be able to have this conversation on this computer right now if it wasn't for gold and silver. These computers run on gold and silver. So it has plenty of usability. Bitcoin doesn't have any usability. The only usability Bitcoin has is, hey, guys, the only way we can keep the value is keep it scarce and nobody sell.
Yeah. I
That's
mean,
all it is, right?
but can you, I think it's also interesting when they come up. This is, I just bought this from Amazon. It's a gold Bitcoin. It's not real gold,
Right.
obviously. But I find it really interesting that all of the cryptocurrencies, when they show them visually, they're either gold, silver, or platinum.
Interesting.
Why aren't they blue or green or red?
It's true. It's very true.
Because even though we have been trained away from thinking about gold and silver as money,
Yeah.
it's in our DNA.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, technology could be used for good and it could be used for bad. It all depends on who wins this war. Okay. If the good guys get in, we're winning by a score of 900 trillion to nothing. These guys are a complete pathetic joke. Okay. Biden, the guy that came out on television 5 days ago looked like he was about 7 inches taller than the original Biden. Did you see that? Or was I seeing things?
I didn't notice that, but that's okay.
It's wild. I mean, you're in a kabuki theater show on steroids of epic proportion, and people don't realize that. What would you say to Cynthia's my client, who's about to invest $1.7 million in gold and silver through carminesgold.com? Her financial planner is telling her that, look, see, silver went down $3. I'm like, yeah, that's the reason why you want to buy. Okay. But they don't understand that this is a long-term investment. And obviously they're listening to the wrong news channels, which probably CNN. And they're saying silver is not going to go anywhere. Silver is going to go to $5. You're crazy. You're taking your money out of the stock market to put into silver. What would you say to this financial planner who's been brainwashed by the system?
I would love to have him on your show and have that conversation. Next stockbroker. I know how this gig works, right? And what they do is they talk around clients, and they talk in circles and circles and circles. But I would have your client ask him this simple question. In fact, everybody out there should be asking their banker, their insurance person, whoever, their stockbroker, whoever they're working with on their finances, ask them this question. And I'm even going to give you the answer, right? Okay, can you tell me how money is created and supported in this system? I mean, is that an unreasonable question to ask somebody that's helping you with your finances? So here's the answer. Well, what backs this crap is the full faith, confidence, and credit, the ability to take on more debt of the government. So that's how you know that it's a Ponzi scheme. But I want to go back to a question that you asked me to in the beginning, and then it ties in with what you just asked me now is, wow, I'm saying that gold, the fundamental value of 1 ounce of gold is 40 grand. The fundamental value of 1 ounce of silver is $2,000. Do you think I just pulled those numbers out of my hat?
Nope.
Heck, my nickname is Data Gal. If I make a statement, I can back it up. So this is how I feel about this. I think it is critically important for everybody to understand the true fundamental value of any asset or any instrument. Because I can't give you a lot of guarantees, but I can give you this one. At some point, all assets, all instruments go to their fundamental value. So what is that? If you're looking to Wall Street to tell you what that fundamental value is on silver or gold or stocks, or heck, take your pick, it doesn't matter. This is not a supply and demand market. It is a trading market. And it is the traders that are establishing the visible prices that you and I see. But when they talk about spot gold, they talk about it as gold. When they talk about spot silver, they talk about it as silver. Those are contracts. They are not physical gold or physical silver, but they are used to control them. So how do you know how much an ounce of gold is? Why am I saying it's 40,000? It's really simple. You have your fiat money. Fiat means by decree. So this is your government debt-based money. On the other side of this coin is your sound money, gold. You want to know how much the fundamental value of gold is? Takes a little bit of a nuance, but not much really. It performs many things, but its most important function and what it has done for thousands and thousands and thousands of years is to hold its purchasing power value intact. And it does that because of its functionality and its demand, right? So it's the same coin, but it's the opposite side. If we've got fiat money, we've got sound money. So you take all of the debt because it's it's credit, right? So it's the ability of the government to create more debt, plus banks, plus every way that credit and debt is created. You take all of that debt, which according to the IFF, when I checked it out the last time, was 313 trillion. We aren't even talking about the derivative bets on there, but it was 313 trillion. There is an unlimited amount of this as long as there is a buyer of the debt. And every time they do that, the purchasing power value of the currency that's out there goes down, right? But there is a finite amount of this. So if you want to know what the true fundamental value of an ounce of gold is, it's really simple. And I'm not trying to get you to the penny. I'm just trying to get you in the vicinity. Just divide all the debt that exists by all the gold that exists. And that's how I came up with 40 grand. It's not rocket science,
Well,
right?
let me tell you, you're not that far off because I follow the debt clock pretty closely. And I remember going back a year and a half to that darn thing, and it would say dollar ratio to gold, $48,000 is as high as I've seen it. So you're about $8,000 off if that one is right and you're wrong, or vice versa. So you're not that far off. So it's pretty wild that I'm the kind of guy, Lynette, that I like to root for the bad guy when I go to the movies. I like bank robbers for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's my Sicilian heritage. I have no idea. But the reality is, I used to watch a show, and when I was still talking to Amber via Skype when she was still living in Malaysia, my wife, I used to tell her, "Hey, you have to wake me up at 3 o'clock every day." 'Cause I used to take a power nap. 3 o'clock is my favorite show, Masterminds. And there was a guy. Remember that show on Court TV? And there's a guy that actually made a billion. He's worth £1 billion, right? Legitimate money. He could print the British pound better than anybody, as good as the government, as good as the Federal Reserve. His note next to, the Federal Reserve note, no difference. He actually sold 7 billion pounds for 1 billion of the real stuff. If you can imagine. Okay. So that's why I always root for the banks are screwing us. So when you go to see a movie about bank robbers, I basically cheer them on. Say, I know you guys are screwing us. So when somebody's screwing you, we like it, I don't know if you're the same way, or maybe something's wrong with me, Lynette.
I'll tell you what, when I watch a movie, I don't want to think. So I go to lighthearted comedy.
Okay. But getting back to the Zims,
Hmm?
you were talking about the Zims and the Dinars earlier. Okay. Yeah. The Zims and the Dinars, you know the story, what happened in Kuwait when we went to war, right?
Yes.
Kuwait actually drilled a hole. They hit oil, but the oil traveled underneath the border of Iraq. And there was a problem.
So I'll listen to you.
Yeah. We allowed that war to take place. The big boys, the governors and the senators and all the elite people went in, and they realized the dollar, the Kuwaiti dinar and the Iraqi dinar would be devalued, and they went in and bought it very, very cheap. We're still all waiting for the Iraqi dinar to emerge, but the Kuwaiti dinar is up to $3.30 for each one, and they were buying it for like 2 pennies.
Did they have a monetary in Kuwait? Did they demonetize the currency or issue a new currency to replace it?
No, they lowered the value.
That's the difference, right?
Yes.
Iraq, they came out with a new currency historically, and so they demonetized the current currency.
Mm-hmm.
Historically and all around the world. I mean, and this isn't, there have been over 4,800 instances of this. I think I even have an Iraqi dinar. I do. Yeah, Central Bank of Iraq.
Is that the good one or is that the bad one? Because I have the red ones. I don't know if the red ones are good.
Nice one. It has virtually no value, right?
Right now, yeah.
They demonetize a currency. Historically, they have never remonetized the same currency. Rather, they have come out with a new currency. So, I mean.
So what do you think happens to all the people who own Iraqi dinars, and if they come out with a new currency, does that mean the old currency is worth nothing?
Correct. This is 100 trillion, no. Yeah, $10 trillion Zimbabwe note. Now they've got Zim gold. This has no value.
It will never have value.
Never, ever, ever will it have value.
So when they revalue, so they know that all these people, including myself, I'm guilty as charged. I went into the casino and I bought a little bit of everything. Okay. So when they revalue, if we don't own the right stuff, it doesn't mean anything.
Correct. Now, in the US, do you remember, and you might not, but I remember we did have $500 bills, $1,000 bills, $10,000 bills, and even a $100,000 bill, right?
Mhm.
And they didn't demonetize them because that would have been noticeable, right? They would have had to have informed the public that they have demonetized them. So rather, what they did was when one made it into the bank, didn't come back out again. So in reality, all of those larger denominated bills, they're still money. You could still go out, you probably have to spend about $9,000 to get a $1,000 bill, but you could spend it as money. So there is a big difference between removing it from circulation or revaluing it versus demonetizing it. And unfortunately, the Iraqi dinars, they're demonetized. They're not ever going to come back. As I could be wrong, but that's what's happened historically. Once a currency is demonetized, it never comes back value again. But you see, you just proved my point, right? When they set up this whole system, they knew that people marry the legal money of the state, and they cannot help. I mean, these are their words. My quote might be off a little bit, but they cannot help but think that at some point it will regain some of its value. But it never, ever, ever does. It just has people living on hopium.
Is it possible because they know that so many of the deplorables got their little dirty fingers on it that they changed the currency because they don't want the little people to win? Is that what it is?
Well, it's not that they don't want the little people to win. First of all, the people in Iraq, I don't know if they would ever trust the currency that's already been demonetized. But also, like, you went in and you bought it, and tons and tons and tons of people have bought a lot of those demonetized Iraqi dinars. If they remonetized it, all of that wealth would flow out of Iraq. Why would they do that? Right? Why would the government do that? Why would the central bank do that? They wouldn't.
It's a good question. I hope my good friend Mark Z over in Puerto Rico is watching this. That's all I gotta say. Because hey, listen, I don't have a lot of that stuff. I'm mostly gold and silver and XRP, XLM, XDC, the ISO tokens that are gold backed, gold, silver, and platinum.
Mhm.
So that's where I dabble in. Tell me a little bit about your farm. Why did you create a farm? Do you think that there's a doomsday scenario that we're not going to be able to get away from? Do you think that Lynette Zang is going to be living on some farm with some fish and some eggplants and tomatoes?
Well, it's a little bit more than that. But as a student of the currencies, so I've been studying this stuff really on some level since I was 10, but in currencies since 1987. And there are all of these repeatable patterns. And I
Mhm.
am super clear on what the age of this currency, what that looks like.
Mhm.
And you can look in Venezuela or Argentina or Zimbabwe or Turkey or so many countries. And when people are hungry and hopeless, they make choices they would not otherwise make. But I knew that the biggest issue for people during these reset transitions that we're in right now is food. And look around the world, food has become a huge issue. But think about what happened in 2020 with the cerveza disease, right? The shelves went bare because most people have about 3 days worth of food in their pantry, and grocery stores have about 3 days worth of food on their shelves. And with the just in time, I mean, it may look when you go into the grocery store that things are back to normal because the shelves appear full, but pull one out from that top shelf, there's nothing behind it, right? So I think we'll have maybe 6 days or 7 days before the public, when the final big crisis happens, before the public knows about it. So I'm hoping, that's what I'm hoping. And I've got some, I've got some contacts. So I think, and also I knew when it happened the last time and I'm paying attention. But my bug out, I actually bought that after 2020 because there were riots. There were riots right near the courthouses, right near my house and near my children's house. And you were in Scottsdale. You know, one lives in Scottsdale, the other lives in Paradise Valley. So all of these are very nice areas. I probably am, you know, closest to where it's not so nice. But I slept in my bed with a gun that night. And I woke up and I said, this is no way. This is not how I want to live. So that's when I went out and I have 41 acres, remote on the top of a mountain that is completely off grid. And I am creating a community up there that will support 40 people. So I've put in orchards, I've put in grow houses. We've got up there, we've got chickens and ducks and turkeys and rabbits. We don't have any fish up there yet. I have those down in my urban farm in Central Phoenix, because here I am dead Central Phoenix, but I have a lot of security around me that I put in place, etc. But yeah, I do think that when people are hungry and hopeless, they make choices they would not otherwise make. And typically when we go through these transitions, on average, 80% of the population ends up in abject poverty. So I actually, in my home in Phoenix, on the exterior of the property, totally have to come here the next time and bring friends. But I planted out the exterior of the property too, primarily because if somebody is hungry and they walk by my pomegranate tree, they can pick a pomegranate, they can pick a zucchini, they can feed their family. And I can't tell you how many people say to me, oh, well, they're just going to come in and they're just going to take everything from you. Well, I have a lot of really good security on my house, and I can't control what they would do to the gardens. But if they do that, I can always plant new gardens. Up at my bug out location, you ain't getting there. It is completely off grid. It is really remote. It is really, really hard to get there. There isn't even really a road to it. And it's highly defensible, but you need a community, which is why I did the XRP show where you and I met, right? Because this is really, for me, I've come to realize that, you know, here's my mantra: food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. And when I was, I did 3 shows actually in Australia last August, beginning of September. And when I got up to the podium, I did the first one my normal way, but when I got up to the podium on the other 2, somehow it just didn't feel right. What I was going to talk about just didn't feel right. And so I gave them the material. Okay. And you can go to my YouTube channel if you want to see me do that dog and pony. There it is. But I started talking about community. And as soon as I did, I got chills from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. And I really realized, yes, you've got to have a sound money foundation. You've got to have that foundation, because if you don't, you have no freedom. You're going to be dependent and you don't want to be there. But you need more than gold and silver. And the other thing, and to your point, and I don't know that we talked about this on air, or we might have talked about this before, you were talking about the food and how important your health is. You know, the government subsidized McDonald's, but not broccoli, right? And they use all sorts of garbage stuff, and it's all about making your mind foggy. Because if you're eating garbage, you cannot think clearly. You cannot. So, you know, for me, yes, all of my stuff here is organic. I put in 5 ponds for the water. I've executed my strategy on this property and on my bug out. But yes, I do think it's going to get, I mean, there were riots right near my house.
Well, I just got back from a convention with Purium, which is a company sort of like Herbalife, but much better products than Herbalife, obviously, much more organic. They're the highest level of organic you can get. I mean, these guys are meticulous. They make sure that no poisons get inside their food, which is great. It's a great company. That's small in size. They should be much further along. I've become friends with the CEO of the company, Dave. So we're going to be interviewing him here shortly. But there was a gentleman on stage. I think his name is Jeffrey Smith, and this guy seems to know a lot about Roundup and a lot about glyphosates. And let me tell you, that scared me into going full organic immediately. The minute I got off the airplane, I said, Mel Carmine does not put anything in his mouth that is not. So I do the 2 shakes a day. It cost me $60 for a bunch of nuts and salads and arugula and tomatoes and all that stuff that's all fully organic. But you know what? I'm only going to eat a small salad a day, even if that salad costs me $10. If that's the price I got to pay to stay healthy, so be it. I'll do it. But he scared the heebie-jeebies out of me when he said that this country, the agencies are allowing the government agencies to put 100 times more the glyphosates in our food than Europe.
Yeah.
Okay. And in India, it's illegal. And in Russia, it's illegal. You can't, they catch you with a little bottle of the stuff in your garage, you're going to prison.
Yeah. And once it gets in your system, it never leaves.
Yeah.
It never leaves. So yeah, there's the whole movement. Dirt is everything. You've got to have really good dirt, and they have really leached all the nutrition out of the dirt. Yeah, I'm right with you on all of this. And I do a lot. I mean, my food really matters to me. I have 4 full-time staff, farm staff between down here and at my bug out location, because you can't live without food. You can't live without water, right? You can live without energy, but it's kind of uncomfortable, and you can lose a lot of your food.
Sure.
I'm more about growing than I am buying my food, even organic food from a grocery store. Because I was doing organic when you'd go in there and you'd buy it from, these little off kind of markets, but it looked like a real apple that you just picked off the tree with the blemishes and maybe a little bug hole or something like that. Now you go into the grocery store and the organics, because the food companies and the other pharmacies really owns all the seeds and all the foods. I mean, it's consolidated. You've got Bayer that's really controlling all of your seeds. I mean, oh my God, it's
a nightmare. When you understand what is really at helm here, it is a nightmare on steroids, and people don't stop for 1 second. First of all, like you said, clouded thinking. I don't think a lot of them have the brain power to be able to understand if somebody sat them down and explained it to them, to be quite frank. Okay.
What about this to them?
Yeah.
Garbage.
Yeah. Garbage in, garbage out. Like, what's his name? George Carlin used to say, okay. The reality is that there are solutions to the pollution. And we have to, because look, that stuff can get out of your system. The glyphosates, the Roundup, you have to probably detox for maybe 4, 5, 6 months, drink a lot of water, do a lot of, detoxing, whatever. But the facts are the amount of damage that it causes, Alzheimer's disease, cancer, all kinds of diseases. I mean, they showed little videos of lab rats that had no idea what planet they were on. They were dazed and confused with tumors on them after 90 days of eating what you guys eat every single day. Scary.
Not what I eat.
Not what you eat, but most people out there don't do their homework. And yeah. I think that, once they see this gentleman, I think his name is Jeffrey Smith, if I remember correctly, on my show, I think we're going to scare the living daylights out of a lot of people. So, because look, I always say this, and I think you'll agree, if you become a quadrillionaire, but it takes you 29 minutes to get out of bed because all your joints are aching because you got all kinds of junk in your body, what good is your 29 quadrillion dollars?
Absolutely nothing. And we have to do it. And that's why I said, I think we've definitely been dumbed down, and also try getting people to think short term. So, that was 15 seconds ago. That's old news. No, it's not. I like to step back and look at history, because history has a tendency to repeat itself. but we have to take responsibility ourselves. It's so easy to blame somebody else, but that's why I said, I look in the mirror and I go, if not me, who? And if not now, when? Because it's always somebody else, and it's always tomorrow. And guess what? How's that working for you? Right?
Exactly.
For
Well,
you. I hike every week. I lift weights. I do whatever I want. I can climb up on a ladder if I have to. I can lay irrigation. Not that I want to lay irrigation, but I can lay irrigation if I want to. I can think clearly, look at my videos. I mean, we have to take care of ourselves, and we have to take care of each other. And we have to come together in community, because you go to the grocery store, right, to buy the organic produce. What happens if you can't get it?
exactly. You're screwed.
What I suggest to everybody is that they go real local, because when we go into I think we're headed to a hyperinflationary depression, and frankly, because of the monetary velocity, which we can get into if you want to, but
Sure, please.
reasons why I believe it's already begun. It's just not obvious to everybody yet, but it will be. And what I can say is, go to a farmer's market. Go to a local community garden. Get to know the purveyors of your food. Give them a day on the farm. I guarantee you, every single farmer could use a couple extra hands. Even if you don't know what you're doing, they'll direct you, muck out that stall or do whatever. Get to know who brings you your food, your water, your dairy, all of these things, so that should it come to pass, which is the most likely outcome, where you do have people that are hungry and hopeless and not able to get food, you want to be the one to be able to get food. If they know you and they don't know that person, guess who's getting the food? I'd also say that, because we have a timeline, but I don't know exactly when we're going to do this yet, but we'll be opening up a new YouTube channel that is dedicated to the rest of the mantra. So food, water, energy security, barterability, wealth preservation, community and shelter, experts many experts in all of those different areas. That's the goal, to meet you wherever you are and then help you get to where you want to be. It's critically important, critically important. You cannot depend on the current system.
Yeah. Do you think there's going to be a societal breakdown where there's going to be riots in the street and all of that?
Yes, I think there is a revolution, and I'll tell you, this was really interesting on a piece that I just did last week, where I was looking at civil unrest on a global basis, and I had pulled this because I go in and I look at that periodically. So I had pulled this, and the last time was May 23rd of 23, so a little bit more than a year ago. And at that time, overall, there were 400 global cases of civil unrest against governments. When I pulled it, so that would have been the end of June, was the most current date that they updated it. That 400 was now 700. Yes, I think that we are headed for a global revolution. Yes, I'd like it to be peaceful. I'd like it to be a sound money movement, because we can take back our voice and we can take back our control with something that is truly outside of the system. And even, with the cryptocurrencies and all of that, you've got to do what you're comfortable doing, but properly diversified portfolio has hard assets as well as intangibles.
Yeah. The ones I believe in, Lynette, is XRP, XLM, XDC. Those are the three main ones that I own, my wife and I. We have accumulated quite the portfolio over the last 9 years. And I'm approaching 150 kilos or so of silver. Okay. I like buying it in kilos. I don't know why. It's sexy. I bought, 20 kilos of silver, I sound like Pablo Escobar, you know. But yeah, look, things are definitely complicated. The average person out there is still not paying attention. Like my customer Cynthia over in California, her broker is listening to CNN and thinks that silver is going to go to $5. Okay, and gold is not going to go anywhere.
But the premium you're going to have to pay on it, I'm pretty sure will be making a whole lot more.
Yeah, yeah. But I got to make an announcement here real quick. Guys, stayingalive.com, alive with two eyes, stayingalive.com. We have a special right now. It's an overnight, it's a bundle package. 3 overnights gets you 1 extra night free, and you could give it away to anybody you like. Okay. And that's available right now at Staying Alive. The link's down below. Make sure you support us. We're trying to do everything from a health standpoint. I'm all about wealth, but I want to cross the finish line, like a champion. I don't want to cross the finish line and I got missing teeth and missing limbs and all, You feeling me?
Isn't part, when we use the term wealth, I think it really covers so many things. And
Yeah.
so your health makes you wealthy, right? If you can do things, you can think, you can accomplish things, that is also wealth.
Yes.
Because everybody that comes into, for example, my community, not everybody that's slated to go to the bug out. And I have doctors, I have farmers, I have carpenters, I have electricians, so I have a variety of people that can support a community. But not everybody has the ability to accumulate gold. Guess what? Your talents are also barterable. And also, excuse me for 1 second, because the other thing that I always like people to know is there are all different ways that you can accumulate gold and silver. It just depends on what your budget is, because while it's nice to come in with 1.7 million, to be honest with you, not a lot of people can do that.
No.
In fact, they might not be able to do much at all. But this is a sterling silver iced teaspoon. That's what this, right? Gold and silver in any form is monetary at its base. So would I care if I needed to cut a little piece off? Nope, I would not. The other thing is understanding how this is most likely to unfold, which is just the historic norm, right? I developed a strategy for myself, and it's done in layers, right? So your first line of defense, even though this is garbage, this is still the most recognized. So you got to have a certain level of cash outside of the system.
Yeah.
Then you go to your barterable position, or those bars of silver, right? So it's really done in layers, and it needs to start with what you're trying to accomplish, what your goals are. That has to come first.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you, I have used the back of my shoe to pound a nail into the wall so I could hang a picture. But it really works much better if I have a hammer.
Sure.
So that's the other thing, is that, I prefer to execute. I'm a strategist. I'm a long-term strategist. I don't care if I miss a run, because I'm really clear on fundamental value and what the real trend is. And the real trend is in the purchasing power.
Yeah.
And my favorite chart, if you said to me, you can only work with one chart, that's it, then I would pick the Federal Reserve, so the FRED, F-R-E-D, their purchasing power of the consumer dollar. And when you look at the index on the left-hand side, it starts out at like $1 or 1,000, but you have to move some zeros, okay? And it ends up at 0, because that's the true fundamental value of every single debt-based currency. It has happened to far more than what I've got in my hand right here, right? So that's the real trend. And if you can only convert whatever you're holding, if you can only convert it into dollars, have 10 trillion of them, have quadrillion of them. It's not going to be anything. That's why I'm definitely more into gold, because gold is the primary currency. And when all confidence in the currency is lost, by the public, because there's layers of confidence, and all but public confidence has been lost, they use gold to regain that confidence. Look at Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe, I'm watching that very closely because that is a real-time example of a government that's using gold to try and develop the public confidence once again. Although this is their sixth currency, all those other five currencies, they will never have any value. Never, ever, ever. And the Zim gold, that's the new one that they came out with. I think it was May 8th or somewhere in May. You know, that test is still out there because you cannot convert it. And that's the issue that I have. If I can't convert this or whatever else I'm holding, cryptocurrencies, what have you, if I cannot take possession of the physical metal, I'm not interested, because I don't know if it's actually there or not. So we'll see.
Well, my boy, what is this? The Financial Ninja, the Financial Ninja. I don't know if you know who he is.
I do.
I watch him. He's pretty cool, and he seems to think that the revaluation when it has to happen, it happens across the board. Even if you have the Zimbabwe's and the Dinars that have been discontinued. I don't know. The only thing I do know, I own some, not a lot.
They're demonetized. They don't need to do anything else with them. It's done.
Yeah.
So, I really am a student of the currencies, and I talk to a lot of very brilliant people and people that I admire and I respect and all of that. But I really have not ever come across any other person that has been able to talk to me about currency life cycles. Not one person. And I'm talking about some very high level people that in order to talk to them, you pay big bucks. And when I say to them, so what about this? What happens when we get to zero? What
Sure.
about this currency life cycle?
Sure.
They go, oh yeah. It's really funny because nobody ever wants to sound stupid. So they go,
Yeah.
oh yeah, we know about that. We just don't talk about it.
Yeah, well, the way I look at it is like this, Lynette. If I make $200 million in XRP and I lost $2,000 in the Zimbabwe nodes and the dinars and the dongs and all that, I really don't care. Not a big deal.
But if you can't buy anything with that 200 million,
Yeah, well, I don't know.
sorry. Because I know this is not what anybody ever wants to hear.
Mm,
It's simply there is more historic, there is 100% historic precedence for what I'm saying. There is
mm.
hope for everything else.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I hope for the little people. I got plenty of gold, plenty of silver. I got plenty of the other stuff that I'm sure I'm going to weather. Amber and I will weather the storm just fine, and I'm sure you will too. However, there are people who have been accumulating Iraqi dinars and Zimbabwe dollars for a long time, hanging their hat specific on that one thing, and that's all they have. They don't have anything else. And if what you say comes to fruition, I feel a little bad.
I feel bad for a lot of people because here's my favorite question.
Mm,
Times can you be lied to when you do not know the truth? This stuff that you and I are talking about today, especially with the money and how it's created and supported, created by confidence, it's a con game. This should be taught in grade school.
I
Because
totally agree.
work for it, right? We're trying to save it. We're
Yeah.
trying to accumulate it. It should be taught in grade school. But once you understand what this system is about, you would go, no, I don't want any part of that. That's where I am because I've been in this on some level really since I was 10 years old.
Well, look, I don't have any kids, but if I had kids, I would want a Lynette Zang to teach my kids.
Thank you so much.
You
I have
know,
one to share.
because I'll tell you what. Bottom line, even the educational system is screwed and has to be changed. I mean, look at all the homeschooling. Homeschooling's gone through the roof in the last 20 years.
Yeah,
Why? Because you're sending your kids to an indoctrination camp. That's why.
exactly. And they're taking, well, it's there's so many things we could talk about. It's the breakdown of the family system and the family structure.
Yes.
I was talking to, actually, she interviewed me. She's in Russia, woman in
Mhm.
Russia, bright woman, had lived in the US for about 17 years. And she was telling me, and so her father had been ill. So she went back after all of this time. And what she said to me was the biggest difference that she noticed between Russia and the US was the family unit is intact in Russia.
Mm.
Here, not so much, right? And then we can go all into that because that started in the prior to the 70s, as well. And I definitely was in women's lib. I mean, I wasn't when I was young. I was kind of like, but then when I went away to college, and then I had a sociology professor that was women's lib period, which is something that's pretty common. Now we have the Me Too movement where we're going through these transitions. Look, when the Federal Reserve was put in place, what did we have? We had the suffragette movement, right?
Right.
There are just all of these things that happen around every single regime shift. And when I
Right.
see all happening again, then, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck and it lays eggs like a duck, I don't know. It's probably a duck.
Yeah. Well,
That's
I'll tell you another thing. I'll tell you another thing you won't find in Russia. You won't find any transgender bedtime story readers that come to your school and read a book to your kids.
probably not.
I guarantee it.
Yeah, I don't really get I never get political. At least on air, I never get political.
Well, I'm that's why they've been stifling me beyond recognition. So I've come up with a plan to grow my channel and destroy their algorithms. I'm about to unleash hell on earth with that probably in the next 2 months. So it's going to be pretty cool. It's really funny, not to change subjects, but you wore the same color shirt as my chair. You notice?
Well, we had to match. And we
Yes. Well, listen, Lynette, it's been a pleasure having you. They can find you at LynetteZang.com. Is all your social media is linked there?
I believe that it is linked there, but on YouTube and Twitter, I'm at the Lynette Zang, and Instagram and Facebook at Lynette Zang, and I have the best phone number in the world. It's 833 GLDZANG.
There you
So
go.
it's to 833-345-9264. But yes, I work very hard. My whole team, I mean, I have the best people in the world. Yeah, it's a great crew. And thank you so much for having me on, Mel. This has been fun.
Yeah, just anytime you want to come on, just send an email to Amber or send us a text message and say, "Hey, we want to come back on the show. We got, some news to report," and you can come on anytime you want.
Okie dokie.
It was great having you. I'm going to hold you back for a little bit. Guys, if you enjoyed the show as much as I'd love to give this interview, I knew that, listen, when I met her, I knew she was a hoot, to say the least. So if you enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed hanging out with Lynette today, please do us a favor and let your fingers do the work, because at the end of the day, the only way we beat the algorithms is with you, the digital soldiers, doing your job. So go out there and do your job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, folks. My name is Mel Carmine, and we are right in the middle of a tectonic shift, the biggest wealth transfer that is going to hit this entire planet like a tsunami on steroids. This will never happen again, at least not in our lifetime. Many of you still have the opportunity to get in right now. Joining our Telegram group is perhaps the smartest thing you'll ever do, and it won't cost you a single dime. We have tens of thousands of patriots waiting for you, and they'll take you by the hand to teach you the ropes so that you don't get slaughtered. Not the global reset. This is not the global reset, but rather the quantum financial system reset, the one that's attached to Nasara Jasara. It's coming at us at 800 miles an hour. The question is, are you ready? Are you in position to receive wealth beyond your wildest dreams? There are 6 to 8 tokens that are going to completely and entirely dominate this landscape. And no, it's not Bitcoin or Ethereum. Join our Telegram group today, and don't forget to visit the Quantum Financial Systems Manual at QFS1776.com